Landry de Luzon, your sword. Where were you first prepared to lead the temple?
In my heart.
And where was that heart tested?
In the field of battle.
By the grace of God, rise, Master of the Temple.
Rise, Master of the Temple.
And find us the Grail.
I should not be Master, and I am not worthy to find the Grail.
Landry is not the Templar they think he is.
There is an army on French soil, loyal not to you, but to the Pope.
This is defiance. By God, Landry, I cannot allow it.
Something has happened, something extraordinary. Can change everything. The Holy Grail is in France.
What better symbol to lead us back to the Holy Land?
The Pope must be dealt with, and we must recover the Grail for ourselves.
The temple is not safe for you or the Grail. This will be the death of you.
The armies of God will be reborn.
What does this mean, my lord?
It means war.
I have given my life to the Grail.
What kind of queen would I be if I did not defend my people?
The ones we love the most are the ones most likely to betray us.
Thanks for being here, Tom.
Thank you for having me.
That looks like a pretty epic story that you got going on here. And I'm sure it's pretty cool as an actor to get to play a knight on screen. How did you get involved?
Yeah, it was very cool to play a knight on screen. I got involved. I'd decided I was going to choose my next project, and you know, because I'm so grateful every time I get a job that I'm just like, great, yeah, I'll do it. And this one, I decided I was just going to like take some time, and it had been quite a frustrating period of about 5 months of reading a lot of scripts, and nothing was kind of like jumping out of me. And then Knightfall came along, and I was just really blown away by one, its scale, and two, the kind of complexity of the characters. Every character is very pulled apart, and Landry, the guy that I play especially, is a huge amount of conflict when the show begins, and that excited me. And also like this kind of story, and it's a classic story, but it's a classic story that I've been obsessed with since I was a kid, and so when I read it, I was just like, oh man, this is not something I've been waiting for the last 5 months to do. It's been something I've been waiting like my whole life to do, you know, since I was a little boy running around pretending to be a knight, fighting in slow motion.
Yeah. So was that special when you picked up the script and started reading it and realized, oh wow, this could be a project that I'm really, really passionate about?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, you know, it has many classic elements to it. But the most important thing, and you know, from a kind of egotistical point of view as an actor, I want to do stuff that really terrifies me. And the character seemed so huge. I was genuinely terrified by the kind of scope and scale of the mountain I had to climb in order to play him.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, let's talk about your character Landry.
Sure.
What kind of research did you do to prepare to play him? Like you said, it's a big character and it's a big story, and I'm sure you had a lot to go back to and read and research. So what kind of stuff did you do to get ready to play him?
Well, I think when you're doing like a piece like this, you have to bathe yourself in as much literature as you possibly can. I think you owe it to that time period, you owe it to the characters, you owe it to the real people that lived during that period of time. Yeah, if you don't do it, you're lazy, I think, and I think that I think it's irresponsible. And so I kind of like jumped in with a lot of research and read a lot about the kind of socio-political machinations at the time, and it was fascinating. It was really, I loved it. And then the other flip side of that is to prepare myself physically for the role, to look like a guy who's been fighting since the age of 11. Because when I first started shooting, but when I first got the job, it was about 3 months before, I was like, I looked like a cross between a kind of like a gerbil and a Christmas pudding. I was like in that kind of zone. So I had to go to the gym for about like 3-4 hours a day. It was horrible, like broccoli and just chicken. It's so dull. And then we did a very intense boot camp where we learned to sword fight, and I'd done sword fighting before in drama school, which is like the most British thing ever, you know. Yeah, to become an actor, you have to learn how to kill people, which I found I was good at, and yeah, so it was very intense. Learned to ride a horse, and it was a lot of fun. Just physically, how much we had to change just to carry our costume. Our costume was about £50, and I remember the first time I tried to get on a horse, they had to get me a stepladder because I didn't have enough power in my legs to like get over the horse. But by the end, our bodies had changed, and we were running and leaping, and it was very cool.
Yeah, so that workout routine was pretty tough on you, huh?
Yeah, just don't do it. I'm reticent at best to go to the gym. Yeah. You know, it was a fun challenge actually to transform my body like that. It was, and just to get into the mindset of those guys, it kind of helps. You know, that kind of monastic life that they lived, it does fall into, you know, getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning and hitting the gym, and yeah.
Yeah, so what was it like for you to show up, like your first day on set on this period piece with the sets and the costumes, and how did that feel for you to be a part of, you know, a show like this that kind of transports you back to a period of time that we don't really get to see much of on screen?
Yeah, I mean, I'm like a history nerd, so, and I always have been. As a kid, me and my group of like feral mates used to run around and you know, pretend to be all sorts of different eras of history. And there's this one shot in the first episode where they built medieval Paris, the biggest sets in a backlot in Europe. They built everything, like streets and castles and temples and palaces. It was amazing. And there was this shot, and it was the first day that we'd shot on the sets, and we had about 350 extras on set, and they'd given each extra a job and a name and a title, and I had to ride down this street, and you couldn't see the cameras, and it was kind of bizarre, you know. You do feel like you've traveled in a time machine. It was amazing.
Yeah, and this isn't like Monty Python's Holy Grail. This is a much more serious drama and take on that. Story. What did you kind of know, though, about the Holy Grail and the story and the Crusades? And you said you were a history buff.
Yeah, well, my only kind of like reference for the Holy Grail was Monty Python and Indiana Jones. So like, I thought it was a cup that melted your face, or and you know, it was something that it's kind of a fun, you know, thing to. And part of the myth that surrounds the Templars. But the Templars themselves are actually just a fascinating group of guys. They set up the first banking system. You know, they answered to no kings and queens, no borders. They became basically a multinational, and that was something that I was really interested in. And in our show, the Grail doesn't have any mystical powers or anything like that. If it does, it's imbued onto by people who want it or need it to be that. And it's that fine line between like faith and reality. And actually what the Grail operates as is a kind of metaphor in which a pivot of power circles around, and how religion is used often by those in power as a tool in order to advance themselves politically, personally. And for my character, the Grail represents it represents a chance of redemption for him to return back to the man that he once was. And he kind of goes on this pathological hunt to find it, but what happens is that the closer he gets to it, the further away he gets from the guy that he thinks he is, and he goes on this kind of journey of a very hard and interesting journey of truth and revelation. It's very cool, and it's a fun show. You know, it doesn't take itself too seriously, but it should be very entertaining.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's something special about it being on the History Channel, because my dad himself is a huge History Channel buff, but now they have Vikings, which is super successful.
It's awesome.
What's it like to be in the company of this channel and a show like Vikings?
I've been a massive fan of Vikings since season 1. And I love it. I think the performance is amazing. I think Travis Fimmel is just amazing, and I love the show because it does something I think we're playing with as well, which is where the relationship between mythology and history and that kind of gap in between. I mean, it's Knightfall and Vikings. They're both entertainment shows. They're there to kind of like take you on a ride and really thrill you, and you have to take liberties with that. But what we've done is we've used the kind of skeletal structure of history in which we can hang the kind of flesh on it. I mean, it's an honor to be like on a show like on the same channel as a show like Vikings, though we are completely different. We shouldn't be compared against each other. We're like, we're completely different shows, but it's an honor to be like on the same channel. And maybe I hope we have a portion of the success that show's had.
Oh, yeah, and it's kind of like this time for television right now where there's so many shows to watch, so many great period pieces. But what for you really stood out about Knightfall? What do you think fans will really enjoy about the show?
It's difficult for me to say. I'm in it, so it's difficult to tell
the
wood from the trees. But we're all I can say is we're all really proud of it. It's of course got epic battle scenes, and they are just nuts cool. There's this one in episode 10, which I watch, and I've seen the episode multiple times, and I cannot believe that I'm in it. But what is so wonderful about the show, I think, is that it has very complex, very real characters, and you can transpose that battle scene in episode 10 and stick it in a house, in a kitchen in 2017, and it because the characters are fueling and leading the story. These very complex, very rich characters. Everyone's got blood on their hands. Everyone's got a secret. And so it's a show that's about kind of betrayal, revenge, loyalty, brotherhood, love, faith, religion, humanity, and morality. Actually, my favorite part of the show, I think, is the political interplay that takes place in the French court and the kind of socio-economic machinations that take place in Paris at the time. It's really interesting, and incredible performances from those actors.
Yeah, because you mentioned politics and the battles, but yes, there is a nice romantic storyline in this too. But I don't want to give it away because it's like a little spoilery.
It is a little spoiler.
Yeah. But women should watch this too. You'll enjoy it.
Yeah, I think they will. I think that's something that we're very proud of, actually, and something that we really work towards to make sure this isn't a gendered show. Yeah. It's not a show that's targeted at men. I think women will enjoy it just as well. I hope women will enjoy it just as much as men will, and that's something that we really work towards. And it has, much like Vikings, some absolutely awesome female characters in it who I think are actually probably better and stronger than the male ones.
Yes, thanks for saying that. So you have a little bit of a Downton Abbey reunion too, because there's a few actors in Knightfall that have been in Downton. Can you talk about that? How you all came from that show, and now you get to be on another show together.
Yeah, we all just love each other and just want to work together all the time. So Jim Carter. He plays the Pope, and he's Jim Carter, Mr. Carson in Downton, and he is just awesome. He's so great. The first day on Downton that I had, it was a dinner scene, and he was like handing me some mackerel and grapes or something, and I turned to him and I was like, "Oh, thank you, Mr. Carson." They were like, "Tom, cut! No, don't say thank you. You're not supposed to say thank you." Like my working class my mum was like, she's gonna kill me. I remember looking to him, like nodding at him. They're like, "Cut, Tom, do not acknowledge Mr. Carson." And I never acknowledged him again. So it's really nice to work with him, just because I got to look at him in the eyes.
Yeah. You got to acknowledge the Pope.
You got to acknowledge the Pope.
Yeah.
And he's great in the show. Julian Ovenden, who was also in Downton, he, I think, is actually my favourite character, one of my favourite characters in the show. He is just brilliant. He plays this Machiavelli kind of a Littlefinger type.
I was just gonna say he's like Littlefinger.
He's cool.
He's kind of your like a nemesis in this show too.
Yeah, we're like great mates in real life, but he just texts me actually. We're good friends, but we always seem to be like cast as enemies.
That's true. Downton too.
Yeah.
Were you able? So they opened a Downton Abbey exhibit in New York.
I know. I just drove past it. I didn't.
Yeah, you should go in.
I'll pop
Surprise some people. Be like, "Hi, I'm Lord Gillingham."
They'll be like, "Who are you?"
No, you're memorable on that show. And you mentioned, your Downton Abbey former castmates and how you guys were mates. You're also on a show called Gunpowder, which a lot of people, it's already aired in the UK, but we're waiting for it here in America with Kit Harington, who of course is in Game of Thrones. Do you guys know Game of Thrones? It's like a little show. It's picking up some steam though.
He's really ugly, Kit. You can't. He's the ugly one.
He's the really ugly one in the show. Hideous.
Yeah.
But you guys have apparently known each other since you were young teens, huh?
Not young teens. I think we were about 19. I think I was about 20 when we met maybe I was a bit older. We met in drama school. Oh, nice. And he's always been that ugly, actually. I can confirm that. He is such a great guy, and he's such a brilliant actor, and he's fantastic in Gunpowder. It was so nice to be able to get to work with him and share a screen with him, having known each other since we'd started the journey together in many ways.
So, that show's going to be on HBO, which is a huge platform. As an actor, to be on History Channel and HBO, and then you're on PBS and BBC America. What's it like for you to be a part of these big, platforms where you can get your work out there, and a lot of eyeballs will surely be on all these shows?
Honestly, I find it quite difficult to comprehend. Where I come from in Wales, I come from a tiny little town of 1,000 people. I grew up on a farm, and I kind of had this dream of being an actor, and to be here in New York, sat here talking to you, it's constantly surreal, and it's something that I don't think I'll ever quite get used to. It's very compartmentalized. It doesn't really feel like me. So I just like to act, and I just like to work, and I like to work with people like Kit and Jim Carter, who are just so much better than me, and that I can learn from, and I just feel very lucky. There's a poster like this of my head in New York, and I had this weird anxiety attack when I saw it. I'm not sure how much I like it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's a little weird.
It's weird. Yeah, it's weird.
That's weird.
Yeah.
I can imagine. Yeah. And I'm sure as an actor, there's parts where you can find great roles, and then you go up and down, and it's all about the journey to get there. What for you has been the hardest part about being an actor and finding those roles that really speak to you and that you get to portray?
The hardest part is, I think, that unless you're Brad Pitt or Tom Cruise, you don't really get a lot of choice, and so for me, it's about kind of the hardest thing is about having the patience to try and find the thing that you want to do, and being part of that slog. But I know it just sounds like such a kind of cliche, saccharine actor sat here talking about how grateful that he is, but it's true. I am. I'm just, every time I get a job, I'm like, what? They're idiots. What are they thinking? I have such an embarrassing case of the imposter syndrome. But I'm going to get found out, definitely, if I haven't already.
Well, I think you're going to get found out in a good way, because you're really, really amazing in this. And it's great that you finally have a role that people can actually see you in and get to know you, because I know that you were in a movie called The Weekend.
That's right.
And you got some awards on Breakthrough Actor, and I know that you have a film coming up that you wrote and directed with Tatiana Maslany, who is your longtime partner, which was a fun fact to find out. You guys are
since 2011. She's also an idiot. That was a really amazing experience to direct that film. It was something that I've always dreamt of doing since I started acting. Well, actually, before that. One of the reasons I became an actor is because I wanted to direct, and I had Tatiana Maslany and Jay Duplass in my film, and it was one of the most rewarding, thrilling experiences of my life. I'm about to start the edit, and I filmed it in Wales, in mid Wales, where I'm from, in this kind of like, very small community that it's rarely visited. And it was amazing to kind of pick these people that I've collected from my life. Like my DP was a guy that I did a film in Canada with, and Tat and Jay, and my grip was from Canada, and I kind of like popped them into mid Wales, and it was just amazing to make it with these friends. It's such a gift,
Yeah, what is the story kind of about? And when did the idea for the script kind of hit you?
Yeah, it's a kind of crazy story, really. I'd kind of had this idea percolating in my head for a while about a couple who are at the end of their relationship. It's a relationship drama, and they go to mid Wales and they rent a cottage and they kind of thrash out their relationship. It's like a Friday, Saturday, Sunday structure. But as I was writing it, I really wanted to see the history that they were talking about and kind of living through. I wanted to see it in action, rather than it be something that they reenacted or just kind of navigated. And I ran these improvisations with the actors to kind of create memories so that they could call on them when they were shooting the script, because I was going to withhold the script from them, shoot in sequence, and kind of drip feed them, so they didn't know where the story was going. But I did these improvisations, and I was doing like, okay, this improvisation is year 4, and I'd give them each their own version, their own narrative of the story. And then, well, okay, watch that for like 40 minutes. And they're such great actors, it was just breathtaking work. And then I'd go, okay, this is year 1 when you meet, and this is year 5. And I suddenly was like, wow, this is fascinating. This kind of like patchwork of memories. And it felt like every day at the end of the improvs that I'd felt like I had witnessed and experienced a relationship. It was kind of like going through your memories, in the sense that your memories aren't linear. You don't experience your memories in a linear way. They're always this kind of jumbled up noise and mess. So when you do come to an end of a relationship, you kind of jump around and move through and try and work out what happened at what point, and there's these pivotal moments that kind of stand out to you. So that's what I did. I threw my script out. I wrote a script and threw it out and wrote these 6 scenes. And it's 6 scenes, each scene from a year of their relationship, told, and the stories are non-linear. So I go from year 2 to year 6 to year 1, and it was fantastic. And we did a lot of improvisation, and we kind of would create these scenes together. And the story is about a relationship. It's about the dynamic between a male and a female, and I wanted to talk about gender expectation. I wanted to talk about ambition versus life, and what that is. That's something I struggle with, and so it was great to have someone like Tat in, where I could kind of. I'm an empathetic guy, I talk to Tat a lot about her experience as a female, but I can never tell her how she feels, or I can never fully understand the female experience. So, it was great just to kind of like hand over to her and defer to her and go, what is this? Let's write it together. And so it created a very interesting, very complex, very rich story, I hope. I mean...
Sounds it.
We'll see.
Yeah,
I go into the edit next week, and I'm really excited to see it kind of like come together.
Yeah, and to have those 2 actors kind of play out your story must be really amazing.
They were absolutely unbelievable, really.
I'm really jealous of you that you get to hang out with Tatiana all the time.
Me too, I'm
a
jealous
big orphan black fan. I do want to open it up for some audience questions, since we have some.
Hi.
Hi.
I have the good fortune of already being able to see Gunpowder. And it was absolutely fabulous. Your last scene in that film, oh God, it's wonderful. But I love the fact when you put it on Instagram and talked about some of the people in it and Kit Harington. And I just want to know, how come he couldn't get you a job in Game of Thrones? I mean, you've been your friend since you're 19.
Yeah, I know. Kit's been cast in Game of Thrones now for...
You're in the final season, aren't you? You're just not going to spoil us.
As long as he invites you to the wedding.
It's a funny one, the Game of Thrones. I'm such a huge fan of it. I'd just rather be be a fan. And I'm also just, I'm very proud of Knightfall, you know, and and although it's, you know, completely different to Game of Thrones, and I think we have about like a fifth of the budget of that show, you know, we've created a kind of entertaining show that I'm proud to be a part of, and I get to sit back and watch Game of Thrones as a fan, which is great. Yep. And he won't tell me anything before you ask.
They're like spoilers. Yeah. We love our Game of Thrones spoilers here. But hey, you never know, Knightfall could really take off, and then you'll get the budget, and that you'll be able to do all that other stuff.
And then we can get the dragons involved.
Exactly. Dragons, yes. Who's next?
Hi. So for this, for Knightfall, did you have to do some choreography or training with swords beforehand, or did you have a stunt double or someone do that for you, or did you have to take on some of that on your own?
Yeah, it was really intense. The training. We had a boot camp for 3 weeks beforehand, where we learned how to fight. And I'd done fight training in drama school. Discovered I had like a propensity for killing people, but then didn't do it again for 8 years. And so when I turned up, I was like, I've got this. This is going to be easy. I've done exams, and it was way over my head. It was the level that Cedric Proust, our amazing stunt coordinator, wanted. You know, he's a real perfectionist, and he made us work really hard. I was doing like 12, 14 hours a day and having to rehearse the fights on our lunch break and weekends. But it was a real big challenge, and I did have a stunt double. His name's Faisal, this great Moroccan guy, who became a great friend. And though he actually did, and Cedric wanted me to do all the fights, he was just always there, Faisal, giving me, just constantly working on it, you know. And I think the fights in the show are really good, and something we really worked towards was authenticity. I think that, understandably, in lots of these things, you know, you just kind of like slice a guy down and plow on, but we wanted to play with the idea of what the consequence of taking a life is, and the choice, rather than it being like some easy kind of Hollywood version of like just killing. You know, there is a consequence to doing that, and that was something that we really worked towards, and make sure that the fights were tough and real and hard, and I think they really come across like that. I mean, you know, we all worked really hard, and we're all very proud of it, you know.
It's hard work. I think we have time for one more. Yeah.
What's going on, Tom?
Hey,
trailer looks really good. I'm looking
dude.
forward to it. You said you did a lot of training, a lot of physicality, but as an actor, getting prepared for this role, trying to capture the authenticity of the period piece, what challenged you the most?
As an actor? The character I play, Landry, he is in many ways he's like a classic hero, but the show is called Knightfall. It's not called Night Rise, and so, you know, if you were to compare this show to something like Vikings, I'm not sure whether you guys have seen it, but don't want to give anything away, but, you know, the story is about Ragnar rising, and we reach a point in season 4 where Ragnar is kind of falling apart, and that's where we start Knightfall with Landry. He's at the point where he is falling apart in many ways. He's very polarized. He's a very pious, very faithful man, but he's having an affair with a woman, and he's starting to discover his humanity. He's lying to his brothers, but he's very loyal to them. They're his family. He's a guy that is a fearless warrior, yet he's starting to get a sense of his own mortality, and to play that kind of dichotomy constantly in this kind of battle, whilst also driving the story, you know, is challenging, and it requires a lot of emotional commitment, and they really put Landry through it. I mean, without giving too much away, you know, physically and emotionally, it was very, very tough. Episode 6 was just exhausting for me. They really put the character through it, and to kind of turn up every day, just be there for 7 months and go through all of that was a really tough challenge. And you know, it's at those moments that you rely on your castmates and the people around you to really like push you through. And they were amazing. And you know, I hope I've done an okay job. You know.
You have. I've seen the first 2 episodes, and you do a great job. And you can tell all the hard work you put into it. You guys can all check it out tomorrow night, December 6th at 10 p.m. After Vikings, I think. So it's perfect.
Yes,
yeah.
right, tailing off those cool
Well, make
guys.
sure to check it out. And Tom, thank you so much for being here. We
Thanks
like
for having
you
me.
here.
Cheers.
Thanks, guys.